the flickering light of Asia, or the Assyrian nation and church. The position of the Russian contingent in Bashkala being uncertain, it was deemed advisable for Marshamun to take his people to Persia. The influence of Russia being now preponderant in the capital of the Shah, the consent of the latter's government was easily secured to allow the Nestorian refugees to remain temporarily in the country, pending the final outcome of the Great War. The Assyrians had managed to save part of their cattle and their flocks. In addition to these, they, on their way to Bashkala, had discovered and confiscated some small stores of wheat which were deserted by the Kurds. These supplies were deemed sufficient to meet the requirements of the people till they entered Persia. Toward the middle of September, the refugees were distributed in Salamas, Khoi, and Urmia. In the course of their focused exodus, they had lost some 4,000 or 5,000 souls, mostly women and children, and of course they had lost also their earthly possessions. Sad as their plight was, still both the patriarch and the people thanked God for their miraculous deliverance, and felt grateful for the hospitality extended to them in a strange country. These refugees, however, were all mountaineers who were accustomed to the climate of the high altitudes. Almost immediately after their arrival in the lowlands of Persia, they fell victims to the epidemic of fever, which was followed by the fearful ravages of typhus. The Russian medical service spared indeed no energy to check the disease. It finally succeeded, but after the list of fatalities had mounted to thousands, the refugees had also been accustomed to drink of pure and clear spring waters of their own highland. The unclean streams of Persia added to the list of their fearful afflictions in the form of other epidemics of dysentery and cholera. It was a frightful sight, says a correspondent to the Syrian American Courier. In the street, in the field, on the housetops, and under the trees, you can see groups of men and women and children groaning in agony, calling for help, but no help can be had. The dreadful contagions caused a havoc among Salama's refugees and made vast the graveyard where the Assyrian victims lay. Eventually, epidemics were checked and the Russian authorities undertook to handle the problem of food and other necessaries in life. The consideration shown by the government of the Tsar for these refugees passes almost all description. By an order from the Petrograd, money was freely distributed among the people, the emperor himself contributing toward this relief work 100,000 rubles. Equally opportune at this time was the relief sent from America. As these refugees had lost all their household effects, they were in urgent need of bedding, quilts, mattresses, etc. A goodly quantity of these was supplied through the American relief funds. The months of September and October were rather mild, and outdoor living was decidedly better and healthier for the refugees than the congested space within the dwellings, even if there were any of the latter that could be had. But as the severe winter of the northwestern Persia began to set in, a new problem confronted Marshamun and his poorly clad people. There were no tents to be had to accommodate such throngs. Stables, barns, or any other shelter that had a mere roof and without fire or fireplace were utilized for the purpose. The sufferings of the people became intense, and not a few perished in the shows and cold blasts of the northwestern Persia. As a shepherd of the flock, Marshamun moved from place to place, visiting the various centers where the refugees were distributed. In Urmia, he was received with great pomp, even the Mohammedans taking part in honors bestowed upon the Assyrian patriarch. This apparent hospitality of the pro-Turk adherents of Muhammad, however, was by no means sincere. It was prompted by fear from the lash of a new authority which they believed had entered into Persia at the urgent request and for the deliverance of the Christians. After the manner of Judas the betrayer openly, they were paying homage to the patriarch of the infidels, and in secret they were laying the diabolical plan which later resulted in the assassination of Marshamun and the 200 chosen horsemen who had served as his bodyguards. Here the best part of a Christian nation continued to remain in exile. and to endure intense sufferings while anxiously waiting every day to hear the tidings of the final triumph of the Allies, with whose fortunes or misfortunes they had chosen to cast their lot.